Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to Sports on the Positive Tip. Kenny Squared is here with me, where we have conversations at the intersection of sports and faith. Kenny, a big trade happened in the NBA just before we came on.
What?
Yeah, Tim Hardaway Jr. goes to Detroit for Quentin Grimes. So it's not a
Oh, I
big
did
trade.
see that.
Yeah, two ex-Knicks. Who was the better Knick?
Uh, is it wrong to say neither? I would probably say Quentin Grimes.
Okay. I'd probably agree with you there. I've always been surprised that Tim Hardaway Jr. never developed into a better player because I always thought he had just as much, if not more talent than his father, you know? So I've
And
always been,
especially with the three.
yeah, exactly. All right. I got a baseball trivia question for you. A switch hitter, it's amazing when you can switch hit. I really just feel that way, especially watching Lindor lately, years watching Carlos Beltran. So there's only two players in Major League history that have over 500 home runs as switch hitters. I'm sure you know them, yes?
Well, Mickey Mantle's one of them.
Mickey Mantle, and the other would be played with the Mets for a couple of years, most of his career with the Orioles. Was there with the Indians when they were in the World Series towards the end of his career.
Oh gosh,
Played with the Dodgers for a while too. Two
I should know
actually
this.
really good years with the Mets actually in the early '90s. That would be one Eddie Murray. So
Oh god,
now I was going to ask you who's third on that list, but I don't know if you'll
third Mark
get
Teixeira.
not Mark Teixeira. That's a good guess. Third with 468 home runs. And I'll give you a hint: Met killer, very much a Met killer.
I was gonna say
Now,
Chipper Jones, but he's not a switch hitter.
Chipper Jones is correct. Yes, he is.
Oh,
Good job. There you go. So you got Chipper Jones, but you didn't get Eddie Murray. I mean, God. All right. We got a lot to talk about. NBA, we're going to start with. Yes, the Knicks make a huge trade, a real big trade. We'll talk about the draft. Bronny James, a lot more. Certainly baseball. The Stanley Cup final was amazing. You ready to get this going?
yeah. Let's get into this.
All right. This episode of Sports on the Positive Tip is brought to you by the Tavern Coffee House. Attention, coffee lovers. Are you craving the perfect cup of coffee to start your day? Well, look no further than the Tavern Coffee House. It's located at 12302 Buckeye Road in Cleveland, Ohio. You can also check them out and order your coffee at thetaverncoffee.com. Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny Squared.
with the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast. Kenny, what a week this has been especially in the NBA, as the Knicks before the draft, I think a day before, it was the night of the Subway Series, the first game. I texted you. We'll talk about Mets and Yankees, but the Knicks land Mikal Bridges, and then a day or two later, they bring back OG Anunoby. And so just break that down, man. I was ecstatic. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I was super pumped. I'm not saying the chase to a title is on, but the Knicks have definitely said we're all in now.
Yeah.
The Villanova four. I asked you this, and I haven't dug deep into this yet, but is this the first time we've seen four college teammates on the same team?
The closest I found was in the NBA currently. There are a total of two on two different teams. DeMar DeRozan and Nikola Vucevic both went to USC, played together at USC, and they're both on the Bulls. And Malik Monk and De'Aaron Fox are both played at Kentucky and are both with Sacramento. That's the furthest I can find. I don't think we're going to find four guys from the same school on one NBA team. We're definitely currently not. I don't think we're going to find that in history.
Yeah, and I think that makes it so unique.
Yeah.
I think that makes it so fun because it's like, and it's not like this team was just like, oh, well, they were four guys. Like they won an insane college basketball championship. The buzzer beater, like that's
Yeah.
insane to me.
Yeah.
At first, when I first heard the trade and I heard it was 5 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges, I was like, "Really?" But then, like, hearing it and, like, learning more about it, first of all, the Knicks still have 5 first-round picks over the next 3 years.
Right.
So it's not like they sold the farm like you've seen teams like when the Nets did with James Harden and they gave up, like, all of their first-round protection for the next
Yeah.
decade,
Yeah.
as the Suns did with Kevin Durant.
Yep.
So they didn't give up the farm for him in that way. Secondly, you're gonna have to pay more because you're not just getting it from a random team, you're getting it from your crosstown rival
Right.
in the Brooklyn Nets. So I kind of get that and I totally understand why they did it. Like why it was so much. Um, from a basketball perspective, I think the Knicks right now are the best team in the East situated to try to stop the Celtics. In that they have two very strong wing defenders. Um, something that a lot of teams can't say.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest, I think there's two kind of question marks the Knicks have to answer here. And I think one can be easily answered if they sign Isaiah Hartenstein and kind of just go with it. And that is there is still a lot of big men that you would have to go through to get through a championship. Whether you're talking Giannis and Embiid in the East, whether you're talking Jokic, years down the road, Wembanyama, like
Yeah.
so I think that they still need like to solidify their bigs. Robinson's good, but I'm concerned about his health. Um, but I don't know. It feels like this team has taken a big step forward.
Oh, yeah.
I still think the Celtics are the team to beat in the East. Um, but between re-signing OG, which we said that the Knicks needed to do, and adding another piece that can score but have defense in Mikal Bridges, it fits perfectly.
Yeah.
Um, the biggest thing, this team needs to stay healthy. And also Mikal Bridges helps with that because he hasn't missed a game since he was in high school.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. He's
um,
durable. Yeah.
so the Knicks
Yeah.
just like if you can stay healthy, this team can go places. We're
Yeah.
talking another 50-win season. We're talking maybe the 2 seed again. I mean, the Celtics have to come down to earth a little bit, right? Like 64 wins back-to-back years is
Yeah. Yeah.
rare.
Yeah.
So
You know, the example I thought you were going to use, I thought you used a great example with the trading of the draft picks. The James Harden was one, but then the Nets did it twice. They did it a few years before that with getting Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, both unfortunately past their primes, and those picks turned into Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So you know, the Knicks didn't do that, and I don't know how valuable those. The Knicks have been good over the last, I'd say, 10, 15 years even, in finding some good gems late in the first round. You know, but we wound up trading them for other assets, and that's all good, right? RJ, I guess, was the highest one that we had. But I think that if the Knicks are competitive over these next 5 years, we would expect them to be. Those will probably be lower picks anyway. So I didn't really have a problem with the draft picks. There's so many positives here with Mikal Bridges, right? He's not a number one guy. When and I saw this because I was curious as to I felt like his game was a little down last year. And when I looked up his stats, I was right because the year before he averaged 27 points a game, which was probably he was playing over his head when he came over from Phoenix, you know, to the Nets. And then last year he averaged 19 points a game, but he was like the guy on the team. And I'm not sure if that's the role for him, you know. And so I think here where he could just be himself, where you've got two other stars, right, with Brunson and Julius, he doesn't have to worry about carrying the team like he did with the Nets. So if he averages at 19, and I think he averaged 19 and 8 rebounds and 6 assists, something like that, pretty solid numbers all around. He's a high energy guy. You mentioned it. He plays every day. Um, I think that it's a great move. And you know, the thing for me, I sent this to you guys, is that it makes the bench so much deeper because now you have DiVincenzo now coming off the bench like he was made to. You have Josh Hart coming off the bench and McBride. I mean, you can just start with those three right there. You could fill in the others as, and let them fight it out in camp. But you've got a front eight there that is really, really extremely solid. And it's a long way away from us doing our basketball sneak peek. They could still make a couple of moves. You never know. But right now, I would say let's now kick that 50 win season up to 55, and let's get that number one seed this year, and then let's see where it takes us. Now again, will the Bucks be better? The Sixers, of course, and the Celtics going to be the Celtics. Indiana's going to be good. The East is going to be good. But I'll take my chances with this team. This team is tough. They're fast. They're defensive minded. It's well rounded. Now you mentioned this with Mitchell Robinson and Hartenstein. Unless they get rid of, or I shouldn't say get rid of, unless they trade Mitchell Robinson, because I don't think they want to trade him. But unless they do, they're probably not going to be able to keep Hartenstein. So what do you do? I mean, are we trusting I like Jericho Sims. He just hasn't proven he hasn't improved enough to me in these first couple of years, and he did get a chance to play in stretches with Mitchell's injuries, a few times here. I'm not sure he's proved enough to me that he can come in and be like Hartenstein was when Robinson was hurt, and vice versa. So what do you think the Knicks do there? Because you called it. I mean, and we'll get to the draft in a second. Look at the guys that were drafted, all these really tall French guys, that were drafted. So the league is starting to become center heavy again. So the Knicks need to fortify that position. What do the Knicks do here?
I don't know, because another one, like, you kind of wonder if he's the odd man out, depending on how things go. It's Julius Randle.
Yeah.
Because like I think he still fits. And maybe that's the solution is you put Julius Randle at the 5 at times.
Yeah.
But like
Maybe.
also Julius Randle wouldn't help defend a guy like Embiid, a guy like Giannis. So
No.
I don't know. I feel like they still do need a big. I mean, do you want to call up Carlos Boozer again? See if he's willing to go?
Carlos who?
Carlos Boozer?
Carlos
No.
Boozer? The
No. Who's the guy that they had last year? It wasn't Boozer.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure who
The
you're talking
old
about.
guy, the Tibbs guy, the
Oh,
old guy.
I know who you're talking about. Starts with a T. Carlos Boozer.
I'm
Carlos Boozer.
thinking, no, Carlos Boozer is the Utah old
Utah,
Jazz
and
player.
had some years there with LeBron in Cleveland. And from Duke.
Yeah.
A very good player. He probably could still play. Remember, he was in great shape. It'll come to me. And you'll probably look that up. I know who you're talking about. He's a New York guy too. He's from here in New York. I should know him off the top of my head. The answer is yeah.
But also another thing too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Celtics, for winning the championship this year, because they have given a new blueprint on how you can win a title. Because like before it was if you don't have a top 3, 5 player, like you're not winning the title.
Yeah.
Like you look at the last 20 years, it's Tim Duncan, LeBron, Kobe, Steph, KD, like Jokic, Giannis. But now with the Celtics, because like I think they're like Brown and Tatum are still top 15 players. But like you can have a couple guys, Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, and have a really good team around them, and it's still a winning formula. So
no doubt. We're talking about Taj Gibson, by the way.
Taj Gibson, there we go.
It's Carlos Boozer. I'm going to remember him now. Very good player. Very good player. Last quick thing for me on the Knicks. The signing of OG. I think he's such a key. I mean, there was something about when he came to the Knicks, and then even he definitely wasn't healthy when he came back, but even when he wasn't healthy, they still were winning. There was something about his presence that spread the floor for the Knicks. He was just such a different player, and he does it all, right? He could rebound, he could shoot, he spreads the floor. He's a good passer. I think bringing him back was just brilliant, and locking him up soon. What did you think about bringing OG back?
Oh, I think it was great.
Yeah.
When the three of I think back to January when Brunson, Randall, and OG were all healthy, and
Yeah.
how this team lost 2 games, including wins over teams like Denver,
Yeah.
and I believe also Philly. And then I don't remember the exact record. I want to say it's 25-11,
Mm-hmm.
including the playoffs when both
Something like that.
Brunson and OG played in the same game. So I think number one, he ups the defensive because like we saw it once he got hurt against Indiana. This team was like, what they score 130, 140, like they were going left and right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think he adds such value defensively.
Yeah.
And now between him and Mikal Bridges, who last year was ranked the 8th best in ISO defense, we're loaded.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it seems like and another thing too, with all of the picks, you stockpile picks when you're trying to say sign a big time guy or do like a big time trade. Where is that trade now? Because
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell's not coming.
No.
Giannis isn't coming.
No.
Embiid is a pipe dream. He's not coming either.
Yeah.
So you might as well, like, having a bunch of young guys on a team like this isn't going to help. And like you said before, if you're a good team, draft picks are useless to you
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
those are going to be 20, 25.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to have a good guy in there.
Yeah, you might find a gem like the Knicks have, and Isaiah Thomas was good at that, and Knicks have been good at that over the last few years. But for the most part, these are, they made their move. You're right. They're not waiting on it. They're tired of waiting on these guys and us hoping as fans. And I think they showed last year with this team that won 50 games and got to game 7 in the semifinals. Let's add a piece. Let's bring the guy back that we know made that big difference, and let's go from there. We'll fill in the other pieces, and I think they will. They'll solve this center problem, I think, because they seem to be woken up as a front office now. Last year they started making moves. It was good because we were sitting back waiting. When are they going to do something with all these draft picks and everything? Um, Speaking of draft picks, I didn't find the draft that compelling. I think it's because I think the fun of the draft was it kind of built on the fun of watching the NCAA tournament, and these guys, and you're looking to see, hey, who's Drew Timmy going to, and the guys from Duke or North Carolina or Kansas. I gotta say, man, it was a while before I even knew one player. I knew Reed Shepherd from Kentucky. I knew him. Um, but it wasn't until Zach Edey, I think, at number 9, that I'm like, okay, here's somebody I know. Of course, we knew Klingon from Connecticut as well. But I don't know, man. What can the NBA do so that we see some of these guys? I don't know. Actually, we had really never saw Wembanyama play except highlights. These guys that they drafted, 1 and then 2, no idea who they were, and that made me kind of turn from the draft. I honestly didn't watch much of it.
Yeah, I don't know if because we're seeing it more and more. I mean, the top 3 players in the NBA right now are all foreign born.
Yeah.
So like, I think in that aspect, there needs to be a little bit more focus on that. But I don't know what that looks like because I mean, you got the Olympics, you got the FIBA
Yeah.
tournament,
Yeah.
but still, like some of the younger guys don't really get showcased as much.
Yeah.
Because like the only thing I can think of with Luka is when he was in the Olympics taking a bunch of like random blue collar workers
Yeah.
to like I think, but did they win the bronze medal, Slovenia
Oh, I
that
remember
year? I
that.
don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. He was just shooting all over the place too, and he wasn't missing. I
Yeah.
remember that. Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know what that looks like.
I don't either. It's interesting that it's France that's like a hotbed of basketball now. It used to be Spain, Serbia, Russia. Now it's like France. All these guys coming out of France. And God bless them. And I love that the NBA has become such an international sport. But boy, oh boy, for the draft and for just the average fan. Now there's some fans sitting there clapping when they drafted these guys. I'm like, are they just clapping because they saw some highlights, or did they really watch some of these guys play? I don't know, man. For me, the draft wasn't that fun. Yeah, go ahead.
A couple theories too.
Of course.
One, we knew of a few other guys a few years ago. Maybe
Right.
it's not as fun this year just because like the Knicks weren't picking in the lottery for the first time in what seems
Sure.
like a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. But I mean, Zion, RJ, you talking about like going back to like a draft like that, you know,
Yeah,
we watch those players, and you know, I want to turn to Bronny James for a second and the Lakers. We'll spend a couple of minutes on that because what jumped to mind there was we talked about Zion, RJ, and probably that might be the last one of the last drafts that had, pure college players that were at the
Ja.
top of it, right?
Yeah, Ja
And
was in
so,
that.
yeah, absolutely. Um, Now Bronny James. So I want to say this. I mean, we also, when it comes to not seeing anybody, uh, do you have any idea how good Bronny James is?
Uh, I'm gonna say he's not that good
Yeah,
because,
but we don't
like,
have any. Yeah,
I've seen a couple of highlights of dunks, but like anybody on Instagram can put together a highlighted dunk. So,
yeah. So here's my comparison on benefit of the doubt. And this is a little bit of a wild one. Um, he might be very good. We just don't know. And obviously he wasn't healthy last year. Um, and I mean, he only played in 25 games, right? The guy that came to mind for me, and again, it might not be a good comparison because I don't think he'll be this good, is Kyrie Irving, who I think only played 4 or 5 regular season games because he hurt his ankle at the beginning of the year in his freshman season with Duke. But in just those few games that he played, we were like, oh my gosh, this guy is amazing. And then he went on to play well in the NCAA tournament. I don't think they got to the Final Four that year, but that's the only comparison I can make to see a guy that now he's not drafted high, Bronny James, but he's in the second round. Kyrie was the first pick, of the Cavs, and so we just don't know. But here's what bothers is this one thing that bothers me because there's so many other positive things. Him playing with his father, that's amazing. That's historic. Um, he averaged 5 points a game in just the games that he played. He played 25 games, right? Um, but I want to couple that with the JJ Redick press conference, right? We don't know. We don't know if he can coach or not. He's a smart guy. I know you didn't care too much for him as an announcer. I thought he was pretty good. Certainly he went to Duke, played in the NBA for 15 years. So I mean, there's been guys that's come in. Jason Kidd is probably the latest best example that's come in that didn't, coach as assistant coach or didn't have experience, right? Um, so we just don't know. But here's my whole thing. And it doesn't hit me hard because I'm not a Lakers fan, so honestly, I don't really care. But don't think fans are so stupid. For Reddick to stand up there and say, I had no conversations with LeBron James about the coaching position for the Lakers. Who really believes that? Did you hear a couple of reporters in the back going, come on, man? And for LeBron to say that, no, I never talked to the Lakers about Bronny, about them drafting Bronny. I mean, come on. Why can't you just be honest? JJ, of course I had I'm not going to share that with you, but of course I had conversations with LeBron James about coaching the Lakers. Who else would I go to? Of course I wanted to ask him some questions. I'm not going to tell you those conversations are. Then I would have been like, okay, I got some respect there. And for LeBron, I did. I went to Palenka and said, this is a dream of mine. But listen, if you can't do it, you can't do it. But I think he'd be a good fit on the team, whatever. Of course, I had a conversation or two with him about it. I mean, come on. That's the only thing that bothers me about this week with the Lakers. What say you?
yeah, well, I had said this when JJ Redick got hired. The front office is setting up LeBron to be the fall guy so hard
Oh,
because, like, and whether he's doing or not, I don't really care. Um, but like, LeBron James now has his son on his team and his former, because I don't think they're doing the podcast anymore because they're
right,
starting the season.
right.
His former podcast host is his coach. If the team doesn't do well, which is so possible because the West is so deep, LeBron is going to be 40. Like, it's very possible that he's awful. I don't know if he'll be awful, but like, regardless, like if things go badly, they're going to point to LeBron and be like, well, you did this. And like, we don't know how good Bronny is, but I will say this. He was picked number 55.
Right.
And also with the pedigree of arguably the greatest player of all time's son. Like, he's your dad, and that's where you're going. That means that 54 other teams decided not only was he not talented enough to join their team, but also not talented enough to have a roster spot for a trade potentially.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And you know,
but it will be cool.
Of course. Yeah. See, that part of it is great. It will remind me of the Griffeys, right? Hitting home runs, you know, in the same inning. And it, you know, but the other two things that bothers me, and again, it doesn't bother me enough to really care much about it, but apparently Rich Paul, who carries a lot of weight, right, in the league, LeBron's agent, calling teams and saying, don't bother drafting him, and oh, we're not going to make him available for you to even watch him. You know, he's either going to Phoenix or the Lakers. You know, that's it. If not, I'll make sure he goes to Australia somewhere. Supposedly that's what happened. You know, I have no idea if it happened or not, but that's what, you know, NBA insiders that we trust are saying. The other thing is that, and I don't quite know, and maybe we can find out about this before our next show, is that they didn't want him to sign a two-way contract. So, but does that mean that they can't put him in the D League or in the G League, development league? I don't know. Can they still, like, I mean, they're not going to cut him. So that's the thing. Can you imagine? I mean, if he can't play, which I don't know if he can play or not. He probably can, as my guess, but he probably just hasn't played enough. But without that two-way contract, can you send him to the development league? I don't know, because you certainly are not going to say, hey, he's not good enough, we're just going to release him. That definitely is not going to happen. Not now, lifetime, not as long as LeBron is there, you know. So it's an odd situation. Again, I think a lot of good coaches passed upon to go with someone who we just don't know. I'm not saying JJ's not going to be a good coach, and I'm not saying Bronny's not going to be a good, serviceable NBA player. I'm just saying, man, be straight up. Come on, you know. That's it. I don't know.
Just Googling this.
Yeah.
Players with 3 years of service or less can be sent or assigned to the NBA G League an unlimited number of times.
Okay.
The NBA team retains and assigns players' rights and can recall that player anytime. So it kind of sounds like it's similar to Major League Baseball in that way.
Right. For the first 3 years, they could send him to the G League, or D League, yeah. Which is probably where he should be. I mean, I guess we'll see how he does in the summer league, but that might be where he can develop and be a really good player, you know. And here's the other thing that we could pray about for this young man is that how are you in the shadows of your father like that? You know, that's going to be hard, you know, but hopefully he'll get past that. You were going to say something.
Yeah, well, it's I don't know. I would go the Shane Larkin route if I was the son of a professional athlete. Where it's like, yes, my dad was an amazing professional athlete, but I'm in a different sport.
Yeah.
So because he's going to constantly be compared, and it's not fair for him because he's definitely not at that level.
No. Yeah. Yeah.
But I do wonder how this is going to look, because I can only imagine the second that Bronny is on the floor at the same time as his dad, it's going to be a very memorable moment. Like, not just emotional for the two of them, because I put it out on Facebook. Like, we did a summer at our church softball league, and that was fun.
It was.
I can't imagine being on the same NBA team as either you or my son.
Yeah.
So it's got to be fun for them.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I don't know. But so I guess two things. I don't know how well it's going to work for him and how much playing time he's going to get, or if LeBron's going to really try to pressure JJ Redick to get Brownie more playing time. Like, that might be weird. But it will bring people to watch the two of them.
Yeah.
Because, like, I mean, LeBron has accomplished a lot of things. All-time leading scorer. Guy's made it to 10 NBA finals. He's won a bunch of MVPs. He's lost 6 of the finals. But like, playing with his son is something that like no one else can really ever say aside from the Griffeys. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting.
It is going to be interesting, and I hope for both of them this works out. It's just a weird week for the Lakers. Just be straight up. Come on, fans aren't stupid. You mean you never, JJ Redick, you never spoke to LeBron James about the head coaching thing? Come on, man. I don't know. That disappointed me. I'll cover the Stanley Cup final here in 2 minutes. It was just compelling. I watched most of that game 7, Kenny. It was as tense as you might think. All of the scoring was in the first period. I think Edmonton scored first, and then probably 2 minutes later, Florida scored, and then they scored a little about maybe about 5-7 minutes after that, and that was it. And I mean, when I tell you there were shots on goal that these goaltenders were stopping, Bobrovsky for Florida finally woke back up. I mean, he looked like he was tired. I mean, that's a long playoff grind, just like the NBA, um, that they had in going all the way to a game 7. But McDavid and now McDavid won, Connor McDavid won the MVP, but it was more for what he did in game 3, 4, and 5 because he didn't do that much in game 6 and he didn't do it really anything in game 7. So I was a little bit surprised that he won the MVP. He's just such a star. But Brassati is Drossati, I'm sorry, is their big player. Evan Bouchard also, and they kind of disappeared for Edmonton in game 6 and game 7 as well. So it wasn't just him. But Florida is just really good, man. They play all around. I think those 3 games, their goalie just kind of was worn out, was done. And they summoned all of the strength to come back and win that game 7. It was a series for the ages. I hope a lot of people watched it. I'm sure pure hockey fans were glued to the set, but hopefully that brought in, kind of novice hockey fans like myself and you, to watch it. It was compelling for me. I lost a lot of interest at the beginning of that series because the Rangers, had gotten eliminated. But when they won those next 2 games, I'm like, I'm back in. I got to watch this. And that game 5 was unbelievable, So anyway, congrats to the Florida Panthers, yes, Florida Panthers for their first NHL championship. We have to now talk baseball, Yankees, Mets, going in opposite directions here now again, because when the Yankees were blistering hot in May, the Mets were cold. Let's start with the Yanks and Subway Series. Now, I wasn't worried about the Yanks when they lost the Subway Series, and I didn't say a word. I'm like, okay, we're just catching the Yankees at Mets aren't a better team than the Yankees. We're just catching them at a good time for the Mets, bad time for the Yankees. So I wasn't worried about them, but when they lost like they did last night, I'm a little concerned now. And watching DJ LeMahieu and Gleyber Torres, just for these 2 games, I hate these 2 games. I hate these 2-game series like that. Yeah. But watching Gleyber Torres and DJ LeMahieu look like totally lost at the plate. I mean, I didn't recognize either one of these guys, So that caused me to be a little. Their pitching will come back around. I'm not worried about Garrett Cole. Come on, I'm not worried about the Cy Young Award winner. Not worried about Heel a little bit of, because doesn't have a long proven track record like Cole does. But you're the Yankee guru. I mean, you know this team better than anybody. So talk to me. What is going on?
Well, I'll start with the starting pitching. The starting pitching was so good, there was no way it was going to stay that good.
Right.
Everyone was so blistering hot at the same time, so I think everyone has gotten cold at the same time, which is fine. I think they'll bounce back and they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I will say the bullpen is a little iffy for me, but trade deadline's coming up. They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Now, I was talking with one of my friends here, and the month of June, now, like we always talk about the June swoon, the Yankees are still 52-31. They're
Yeah.
still 21
Yeah.
games above 500.
Yeah.
But the month of June has been brutal, not just because of their record, although the record hasn't been great, but primarily because there hasn't been a week where you felt good. Um, week one was when Soto had his injury scare, and you weren't sure how long he was going to be out. And then he's finally back, and then Aaron Judge gets hit in the hand with the pitch. And then there was that tense thing. And then and then Rizzo goes down with an injury, and Stanton goes down with an injury. And it's kind of shown that this team is a little too top heavy. Like Soto has been excellent still. Judge has been great. And also Volpe. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think he's gonna make it. I said this before. I would love for Volpe to make the All-Star team.
Yeah.
Because I think he's played well enough to deserve it. I don't think he will because you got Gunnar Henderson, you've got Bobby Witt Jr.
Yeah.
Probably both of those guys will make it. But I look at so the top three of Volpe, Soto, and Judge has been great. After that, it's been like I have no idea what the heck you're getting from day to day.
Right.
Are we going to start having conversations about how long DJ LeMahieu can be on this team as like a regular everyday starter?
Yeah.
He has looked like, because last year he was dealing with some injuries. This year he has looked lost. Gleyber Torres, it seems weird to me because when he wasn't hustling in the 8th inning a couple nights ago, Boone says it was because he was hurt. And then they say that they benched him for a couple games.
Yeah.
Are they benched him because he was hurt or because he wasn't running?
Yeah.
Just to be straight up.
Yeah.
That sometimes is an issue with me with Boone, but I can kind of get over that. But I think you need another bat in here. I know it's been a week, so I'm not that concerned, but JD Davis hasn't really shown me a ton early on. We'll see. I mean, he did get cut by the 8, so I don't know.
Yeah. He had 4 homers and 5 RBIs,
Yeah.
So,
I don't know if they do it. There are 2 guys that I think would fit perfectly for this team.
Who's that?
And I don't think either of them would do a trade with the Yankees. Vladdy Jr. and Pete Alonso.
Oh.
Yeah. And Vladdy has recently said, I'd be open to a trade for the Yankees.
Yeah.
I still don't think they'd do it, especially in division like that.
I think he cut his hair already, but you think he shaved that beard? I guess he would, have no choice if you agree to a trade to the Yankees. I felt this the other night. If I'm the Yankees, I'm not panicking. You said this to me when Lindor and Nimmo and McNeil's had a couple of good games now. Not to panic, and so with LeMahieu, I know he's a little older, but I wouldn't panic with him just yet either. I keep running him out there. He's gonna hit. I mean, it just unless he's turned into Jason Bay. Sorry, Jason Bay. And he's just gotten old real quick, or he's more injured than he's letting on. He's gonna hit. And so Torres is the one that I'm surprised at, and it was more to me that he looked lost. Listen, I didn't buy for a second that he was hurt. He was running fine the rest of the game, and maybe he is. I don't know, but I think that he was frustrated. He was embarrassed that he missed that that ground ball that Nimmo hit to him, that he almost moved out of the way of it, which was a little bit weird. And that was a big run, as the Yankees came back that night, and so I think he was more embarrassed. And sometimes, you just put your head down and you just jog, which he shouldn't have done, but I'm not panicking if I'm the Yankees. The Yankees are going to be fine. I think that they did exactly what we thought, right? That they needed to get off to a big start, and they did. You get off to a big start like this, you go through a tough stretch, you're still fine. They're still fine. There's 21 games over 500, like you said. So I'd like to see them straighten themselves out here in Toronto, because I don't know what's wrong with the Blue Jays, but, they certainly look like gangbusters last night, but I want to see them straighten themselves out a little bit this weekend, get some momentum. They shouldn't get either swept or 3 out of 4. The Blue Jays shouldn't do that to the Yankees at this point. So
Yeah, and like I think also what makes this a little challenging is like Garrett Cole is still working his way back. So I don't expect him to be like, okay, dude, you're giving me 112 pitches, 7 shutout innings. Like, talk to me like late July on that.
yeah,
But then everybody else, no one has really been like that shut down ace type of guy. Heel has a little bit, but like also he struggled in the month of June.
yeah,
So I think that's also part of it is there's not like because I think of when CC Sabathia was on the Yankees. I believe he was at one season he was like 13-0 or something like that. In games following a loss. So when he took the mound, you knew you were going to win the game.
yeah,
And they don't necessarily have that guy.
yeah,
And the bullpen, what worries me too is that like because the starters aren't going as long, the bullpen is getting a little bit more exposed in that way.
yeah, yeah.
But I'm not as worried about the bullpen. Like I said, you can get a bullpen guy easily. Trade deadline's coming up. But
Yeah.
also, Lou Trevino is working his way back as well as Scott Efros.
Yeah.
2 guys that kind of have been like on the periphery for a while, just like working back from Tommy John. So,
Yeah.
like, I think that'll help solidify it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll talk about the Mets here for a minute or two. Well, obviously playing a lot better. Let me just say this though. This last thing, this came in my head as you were talking about Cole. I will say this, and he's still working his way back from injury, and you know this better than I would, because you watch him every day. But I don't remember the last time 2 players squared up and pulled home runs against him, like the one that Vientos hit to the opposite field. Okay, it was outside and he went with it. He got a good piece of it, and it just barely made it over the fence. But that first home run that Vientos hit, that was pulled and was well about 10 rows into the stands, and then Bader, who's played very well, hit after. I hadn't seen that from Cole in a while. So that would be the only thing that concerned me a little bit about, I don't see many players pulling home runs against him, pulling the ball, period, because he throws so hard, and his ball usually dives inside at hitters as well. But I'm not concerned about it. He's going to right himself. He just sees, it's like spring training almost for him. Um, so to turn around for the Mets has been a couple of things here. When they put Lindor in the leadoff spot is when he started hitting. He started taking more pitches, and he's up to almost 250 now. Remember, he was batting like 190 back in May. Making the decision to just play Vientos every day instead of Brett Beatty, sending him down was big. Bringing up Iglesias to spell Jeff McNeil here and have a spark, I think that was big. So it's just been in JD Martinez they seem to be feeding off him because this is the first time I've obviously watched him day in and day out. This guy is such a good hitter. He reminds me a little bit. This is going to be a bad comparison because obviously I'm comparing him to a Hall of Famer, but he reminds me a little bit of Frank Thomas in the sense that he has this big swing, but he always makes contact. It's rare that he strikes out. Frank Thomas used to not strike out. For a guy that you would look at and say, yeah, he's hitting 35 homers a year, you think he'd strike out. JD's not going to hit 30 this year. He'll probably hit 20, 25 because of his late start, but he's hitting the ball in the gap. And it seems like they're feeding off of him. You mentioned Pete Alonso. It's going to be fascinating to see what they do with him because the Mets obviously continue like this. I mean, they're at 500 going into the series with your favorite team, the Houston Astros, who are ironically also at 500 now, which we wouldn't have thought. They're 40-40. The Mets at 39-39, and they have a 3-game.
Bring the power of Grimace.
Yeah,
sweep them.
I it's going to be fascinating to see if they stay in contention, which I think they will. What they do with Pete Alonso, I mean, he's okay. He's playing okay. He's had a couple of big hits. Not too much this week. The week before he has 16 homers. I mean, compare it, Aaron Judge has 30, you know what I mean? So, I think he should have 20-25 by now, but, he's still batting in the 240s, playing good at first base. So, but it'll be fascinating to see what they do with him. I think I think if they don't trade him and they're still in contention and they don't trade him, I think he'll have a big second half because the pressure will be off. Him. So listen, here's the only thing to watch out for the Mets these next couple of weeks. We saw what happened with Edwin Diaz. He deserved it. I'm sorry. Um, and I text that to you right away. I was like, I mean, you see the goop on his hand. There's something else on it. That wasn't just rosin and sweat, whatever. And the fact that Mendoza didn't even argue and the other players were kind of, as they gathered around, they were like looking at each other. They were like, oh, he got busted. Um, and he didn't argue that much. Edwin Diaz, he's not a guy that's going to argue that much, but the manager, when he was like, okay, and he walked the dugout, I was like, and plus ESPN had a great job. I mean, this game's on national television, so, but he's out now. I guess it's another 8 games or so. And then Drew Smith, who had been pitching really well and who came in, that was a tough spot to come in the 9th inning, and they held on for that game against the Cubs. So, with Drew Smith is also now in the 15-day, DL. So that's the only thing to watch for with the Mets. Their bullpen had righted itself after a very shaky start. After a good start, then they were really terrible through May. They've been really good for this month. Those are their two of their top guys. So we'll see what happens. But let's go. I'll ride this wave. I didn't say nothing about this sweep on the Yankees. I mean, come on, and it's 2 games. It's not, they didn't sweep them 4 games. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, two game sweeps to me are cheap sweeps. Like,
yeah,
I hate it when people are, oh yeah, they swept them. Like,
yeah, it's just 2 games.
If
Come
you
on.
sweep at the end of July, then okay,
Yeah.
talk about sweeping us.
Yeah. Let's take a quick run around baseball because it's starting to get close to where we see who's in the All-Star game or not. I was really surprised at the pitchers. I wanted to throw a few quick stats at you. In the National League, Ronaldo Lopez, which a lot of folks haven't heard of, is leading the National League in ERA. He's with the Braves. He's 6-2, and he's 1.70 ERA, pitching lights out. And he probably wouldn't have been in the starting rotation and not for the injuries that the Braves have. But Ranger Suarez continues to just pitch great, and the Phillies might be in a little trouble here because you probably saw Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber both on the DL now. But Suarez is 10-2 with a 2.01 ERA. And one can make the argument that he's like the 3rd best pitcher on that team. In the American League, we talked a little bit about Corbin Burns, but Seth Lugo also continues to do well. 2.29 ERA. He's 10-2. But this guy Tanner Houck leads the American League in ERA. Did you know that guy up in Boston? He's 7-5, but he's got a 2.18. You look a little annoyed.
Yeah, well, I knew he was having a good year.
Yeah.
The Red Sox in general, their starting pitching has been really good.
Yeah.
Anyone not named Rafi Devers is not good. But
yeah. They've got some young players that are coming up. The Red Sox, here's a big surprise for me. Ryan Helsley from the Cardinals leads, and the Cardinals are playing very well, by the way. But he leads the majors with 28 saves, which I think is great. And so, anything in baseball standing out to you? I mean, the Guardians are 51-28. We talked a little bit about them last week. They continue to play well. Did they sweep that series with the Orioles?
I think the Orioles won the last game.
They won like 2 out of 3. Yeah. They're playing extreme. It's still playing extremely well. The Guardian. Is there excitement there in Cleveland yet?
No. There won't be excitement until they're actually in the playoffs.
Yeah. Wow. I think it just came through. It might be Drew Smith that needs Tommy John, which would be his 2nd time. Yeah, I thought he'd just be out. Yeah. Oh, he says he could need, but his injury is pretty significant. So we won't see him probably this year, the rest of the year, unfortunately. And he's been good. He's got closer stuff, even though he hasn't really been a closer yet. So the Mets are going to have to make a move. They brought up some pretty good arms with Nunez and Danny Young. So we'll see. Maybe they have somebody else down there. What else? Anything else in baseball? If not, we go to some inspiration.
I wanted to pull up his number because he's not qualified yet. but Stephen Kwan for the
Yeah.
Guardians,
Oh my God.
batting 373.
He's lighting it up. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I don't. I always lose the calculation. I think it's like you have to do 4 plate appearances, whatever.
Yeah.
But when he qualifies for the batting title, he's going to be by far the leader.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also quick watch, just kind of a keep an eye out for it. Because I saw a thing. 2 guys are very close to the tops in the Triple Crown, actually. Let's see here.
Your
Come
guy.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aaron Judge is second in batting average
Yep.
and first in home runs, first in RBIs. And Shohei Ohtani is also up there. I wanted to pull it up fully, but my computer's getting slow.
He's just been unbelievable, man. Shohei, especially since Mookie Betts went out. He's been didn't he tie a record? He had RBIs in 10 straight games. Yeah, I know it beat the Dodger record. I'm not sure about the major league record, but he's just been incredible, man. I know he's got 25 homers and I think he has close to 70 RBIs.
Here it is.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so Shohei Ohtani is leading. I don't care about OPS right now. He is leading the league in batting average at 322. Jurickson Profar, who's very quietly had a good year, is at 316.
Yeah.
He leads the league in home runs at 25. Marcelo Ozuna is second with 21. Bryce Harper is 20. And RBIs, Alec Boehm of the Phillies has 65. Marcelo Ozuna 64. Shohei Ohtani 61.
Okay.
So
that's going to get
both
interesting.
Judge and Ohtani lead in 2 out of the 3 categories. So
yeah. That's going to get really interesting. Be fun to have another Triple Crown. Imagine that race for a Triple Crown in each league. That'll be a lot of fun. All right, lots to talk about. Although we're going to put ourselves on a little bit of a hiatus, as you're taking like a trip around the world or something like that, you and the family, which is great.
Oh yeah.
Hey, so Butch Reynolds, you probably don't know that name. He won the gold medal. And he was deemed the fastest human alive back in 1988 in the Seoul Olympics, I believe it was 1988. And then right before the Barcelona Olympics, during the right before the Olympic trials, he tested positive for steroids. And he was very adamant that he never took anything. And so he had them retest. And by the time they did everything, the retest was a week later. And but a week, supposedly, if you have steroids, it stays in your system for 30 days. His test a week later came up totally clean, right? And so the U.S. Track and Field Association exonerated him and said that you can you could play in the Olympic trials. However, the International Association of Athletes, right? International Athletes Federation, something like that, that was run at that time out of Barcelona, they totally still denied him to compete in the 92 Olympics. He was devastated. He sued them, and 2 years later, a court there in Spain found him not guilty of taking steroids, and he was awarded $27.4 million. Now, he never collected a penny of that because they refused to pay it. And the United States has no jurisdiction there to compel them to pay it. So it's 34 years later, and he's still fighting to clear his name. He's still in court, to clear his name there because he never really got to compete in the Olympics again. And so there is, I'll make this recommendation. I didn't see the whole thing. I saw most of it. There's a 30 for 30 on ESPN called False Positive. And it's really amazing that actually does and can happen, that there could be a false positive drug test. And while the U.S. Track and Field, they went really hard because that was around the time that they knew the Russians were doping and the Cubans. So they were really their testing methods, even though it's 1992, were for the Olympics was far, succeeded, Major League Baseball and some of the other sports that was starting to see steroids creep in. Their testing system was state of the art. And so retesting and retesting him, they deemed it that it was a false positive. That, and they even gave the exact reasons why the false positive came up, but the International Association never brought it. They're like, I'm sorry, we're not gonna, we're never letting him compete or whatever. And so 34 years later, he's still fighting to clear his name. It's a very interesting documentary. You probably never heard of him. I remembered him from back in 1988, but it's called False Positive. It's on ESPN, and it kind of, there hasn't been many players. The last player, baseball player that said, "Hey, there's no way I tested positive," was Ryan Braun, and
Uh,
yeah, and we know how that turned out. He had to finally admit that he was lying all that time after he ruined the career of the person that was working in the lab. The poor guy got fired and then never got his job back. That was a whole other different story. But this one, it just seems to me like all these years later, I mean, you would at some point give that up, right? If you were guilty. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind watching it. Although it's a little bit odd, they have him like in this dark room and they're just showing his face when he's talking. You'll see what I'm talking about if you get a chance to watch some of it. But there's no doubt in my mind that Butch Reynolds, that was a false positive test, which can happen. So, Butch Reynolds, my inspiration this week, for 34 years, as long as you've been alive, he's been fighting to clear his name of this. So Butch Reynolds, inspiration this week.
wow, that's wild.
Yeah.
Actually reminds me of this is not my inspiration, but Sha'Carri Richardson
Yeah.
has made the Olympic or has made Paris. So that's
She's gonna
fun.
kill it, man. Hopefully she learned a lesson of smoking marijuana, but she's gonna this is gonna be a fun Olympics. It really is. I'm looking forward to the
Yeah,
basketball. Yeah. And
agreed.
and the baseball is back.
Yeah. Um, well, mine actually doesn't go too far back. Because like I figured with the draft, there's always a good story to go with. So I literally Googled inspirational stories from the draft, and I have one. The number, what was he, 7 or 8 overall pick, Donovan Clingan. We
Yes.
kind of mentioned
Yeah.
him before.
Yeah. Great story. Go ahead.
Very, very well dressed here to the NBA draft, full blown suit and tie. But what makes it so special isn't the suit and tie, but what's on the inside. He lined all of the inside of his suit with pictures of his mom, who he considers as a big part of how he made it to the point where he was.
Hmm.
Um, and definitely wanted her to be a part of this big moment of his life. And unfortunately, she couldn't be there in person because she passed away from breast cancer back in 2018.
Yeah.
So it does like that part really just like gets you, but definitely a guy that he's also from Connecticut. So being part of UConn and being part of 2 titles is such an amazing thing for him.
Yeah.
So shout out to him. Hopefully he has a great NBA career. He got drafted by the Blazers, right? If I remember seeing that right.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
so hopefully he does well. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. That was awesome. I happened to see that part when Monica McNutt, Knicks announcer, also as well as for ESPN, opened up his jacket, right? Did you see that part where she opens his jacket for him and you see all the pictures of her in there? A sad story that she passed away. He was in the 8th grade, I believe, when she passed away. And yeah, that's an amazing story. I'm so glad you brought that up. Awesome. 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 All right, we're gonna be on a hiatus for a little bit. We'll be back sometime, probably late July. We'll give you a chance to come back and recover. Really excited about your trip out west. I'm sure your 2 young ones and your wife is very excited, and we're gonna be following along. But it gives us a chance to take a little breath, and we'll be back. I think we're actually closing in on close to 300 episodes, you and I. With this, so
Oh, really?
yeah. So you
Wow.
mentioned LeBron and Bronny. This has been so exciting for me to be able to do this with you. We get
Yeah.
to just talk some sports, and we probably have to sprinkle in more faith, but we'll do that, So, but this has been crazy exciting. So, you guys have a great time, and for those of you who listen to us, thank you, and we'll be back probably in about another 2-3 weeks or so.
Yeah, we probably right after the All-Star game.
Yeah,
Like we should be getting back that Monday. So
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I don't know who the Mets All Star is going to be, and so they don't have anybody that is stood out. Everybody's playing well, but maybe Lindor. He should have made it
yeah,
last year.
maybe.
Yeah, Perdomo from the Diamondbacks. Remember they had to replace somebody. Somebody got hurt, and they swore that he was going to make it. And Perdomo, I think, made it. Whereas at that time, Lindor was killing him in every stat. It was kind of weird, but I don't know. It'll probably be. Who I think will be the Mets' probably lone All Star. Maybe would be Luis Severino.
That would be wild,
Yeah. I think he'll make
but
it.
it makes sense.
His numbers will be good enough. They don't. Not going to have a reliever good enough. Won't be Edwin Diaz this year. So, all right, bud, take us home.
All right, this is Kenny Squared End
Kenny.
with Sports on the Positive Tip. Thanks again for watching, listening, however you do it. And yeah, we'll be back in a couple weeks.
Awesome. Thanks, bud.